If you watched us last week, you saw that we picked up a new saw, a sliding table saw, and installed it in the old stable. We also sold our little sailboat, Articos, and then we laminated the largest bulkhead that will be mounted in the boat, and it was a perfect fit.
So another bulkhead glued in place, and as you can see, I also did those triangular PET foam spacers on the edges there, so Malin can start tabbing this in. Yeah, like I said, this bulkhead is not totally finished. There's going to be like a top piece here as well. That is really a part of the deck house. We'll add that later on. And in addition to that, there's probably going to be like an opening here in the middle to give more space for the engine. But I will talk more about that later, because we haven't decided exactly how big that box is going to be and how far into the cabin behind here it's going to protrude. So it will still be like a watertight bulkhead, but the reason that I wanted to wait with this is because we don't know exactly what type of engine or gearbox that we're going to use. Yeah, so now we only have one big transverse bulkhead left, and that's the one dividing the engine compartment or the utility room from the rudder compartment back there. So it's going to sit roughly around here. But we'll wait with that, because in that one there won't be like a door. So once we have that in place, we need to climb over it. So I'm thinking that the next step now will be to start working on that lengthwise bulkhead, if you call it that, that sits between this bulkhead and the one in the galley. And that's like the wall dividing the two cabins that we have back here. And it's also going to take quite a lot of weight from the salon area up here, pressing down on that. So we're going to make it twice the thickness, 50 millimeters, partly because we want to have some sound insulation between those cabins, but also some extra strength from above. And talking about soundproofing, this utility room here, the plan is to get plenty of soundproofing on the bulkheads and on the hull here, and also in the ceiling.
Today I'm all alone working out here. Johan has caught the flu, so he's been down with that all weekend and he's still sick. But I will continue with tabbing in the bulkheads. Same old, and I hope he feels better tomorrow. That's the thing with the boat build, that some things goes really fast, like it goes pretty fast building the bulkheads and putting them in place, but then the rest of the job to finish all that takes a lot of time, and it's the same for many days, like tabbing in the bulkheads. We have to do that on each bulkhead, both sides, but at least now when we can work both at the same time and we do different things, it goes much faster. Like Johan, he's focusing on making the bulkheads and I'm tabbing them in. So hopefully in not too long we can start with something else. So many people are sick now, so I guess it was just a matter of time until Johan caught something. Today I will continue laying the 2 layers at the same time to make it go faster. And I'm not going to use the roller actually, because the angle that I have on the current bulkhead that I'm working on is so narrow, so I can't get the roller in there. So I've cut some fiberglass pieces much shorter, so I can just lift them from the saturation table that I have and lay them in the position.
I ett försök att kunna se in genom fönstren och avgöra
I often listen to podcasts while working out here. And today I was listening to a Swedish crime podcast. It doesn't show on film, but it's quite difficult to stand in a good position here because of the shape of the hull. I slide down all the time. I finished this side before lunch and I just came back. So now I'm thinking which one I should continue with. If I should do the one on the opposite side, but I have to sand first then. Or if I start with the bulkhead going into the machine room, but I have to sand there as well. Okay, that was fast. I'm gonna start laminate here now and see how many pieces I can put on. I don't think I will finish. I will just end with a layer of peel ply and I can continue tomorrow. Nu är du inne i ditt rum, Vera. Hur känns det? Var ska din säng vara? Hur ser det ut, tycker du? På väggen? I didn't finish before I had to go and pick up Vera, you. And so I managed to get 3 pieces on. Now we're gonna go and have some snacks, mellis, fruit or something, and then you're gonna go to dance class.
Tack för att du tittade. Tack för vackert.
Här har vi fullt med aceton som gör att det här inte torkar förutom att använda. De står från en ligga här i tillbaka. Men jag har aldrig fått säga att det är giftigt. Så det står här i morgon. Sådär. Signs of spring have started to show up here and there in the garden. First to pop up through the ground are the winter aconites, the snowdrops and crocus. These beautiful flowers, together with more daylight and some sun, makes it feel like summer isn't all too far away.
And by the looks of it, severely dehydrated.
Second workday, and I was finishing the bulkhead to Vera's cabin while listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Real Survival Stories.
Afterwards as well, but
It is so interesting, and I can really recommend it if you haven't listened to it before.
polarity and everything.
It's 3 p.m. and that's it for today. I got some cleaning done in the morning and then I've been laminating. So I've done the first piece on the biggest bulkhead in there. So things are progressing and seems like Johan feels a little bit better today. We'll see if he managed to work some tomorrow. Otherwise I will work half day here and then half day editing.
Yeah, for the past few days, I've been really down and out in what I'm thinking is influenza, because I've been having a really high fever and not feeling very well at all, actually. But luckily, Malin has been able to do a lot of work. Yeah, as you have seen, doing a lot of the tabbing on the bulkheads, so that's really nice. But today I feel a bit stronger, so I will start working slow. And my plan is to start working on that shelf along the sheerline, where the deck will be attached against that. I will explain more later on.
These planks have been attached to both hull sides to help the hull keep the shape.
Feels nice to be able to remove these now. So for the sheerline shelf, I'm going to use these leftover pieces from when we built the hull from Western red cedar. Really nice Western red cedar from Haida Gwaii in British Columbia. And we have enough of this so we can cover both sides and the full length of the hull. So now I just have to make a pretty big radius here on one of the edges to make it easier for the fiberglass to conform. Once it's time to glass and tie the deck and the hull together on the inside, we'll put glass over this, so this piece will be glassed in. And then of course on the outside, as you have seen, there's a big recess all along the sheerline to make extra space for the glass coming down from the deck, tying the deck into the hull on the outside. Yeah, I have to move the router bit. It's not sticking out as much as needed. And the way it sits now, I can't get it deep enough, so I just have to move it a little bit. But the thing with this router bit is that it's a pretty hefty piece, large diameter, but the shaft is only 8 millimeters. So I don't want it to stick out too far, because then it's, you know, not as stable. Yeah, so yesterday was a pretty slow day. I got all the sheerline shelf pieces done on both sides of the hull, but I have none of them glued in yet, so that's the plan for today, to start with that. Yeah, we're pretty much in real time now. It's Friday today, so this is going live tonight. So you guys just have to excuse us if there wasn't that much progress in this week's video, but that's just the reality of YouTube. It's our lives, so sometimes stuff happens. You get sick in this case. So we hope to have more progress in next week's episode. I'm using microfibers now to mix up with the epoxy, since we're gluing Western red cedar. I think this, or at least in my opinion, this is better when gluing wood compared to like colloidal silica, which is more brittle in my opinion. I like colloidal silica a bit more as an additive. Yeah, when you're fairing something, and it's important to get the really nice surface texture on it. This is quite rough. Oh jäklar! The Reaper man.
Alltså, det måste ni ju testa.
It's been a bit milder outside this week, and I hope that continues, makes working out here so much easier. We've been having some days with temps above 10 Celsius. So I'm using some salt on this, just to prevent it from sliding when I put pressure on this. This salt is quite rough, but it does the job. That's roughly it. Oh my God, it's so slippery in here. So a lot of people have asked us where are we going to run the cables on the boat, and yeah, we have decided to not have them down in the bilges and instead run the hoses and electrical cables here on the sides of the hull, roughly at the waterline level or slightly above that in cable trays. And yeah, the reason we can do this is because we have cabinets more or less the whole length of the boat at this level. And I think it will make access to the cables and everything easier. And we keep them out of the bilges, where if we get water in the boat, you don't want to have cables down there. Not that that's very likely. And then, since we have a watertight bulkhead here between the engine room and the living quarters, those cable trays will have to come up to here, but we can't just go through this wall, because then we will compromise the water tightness of the bulkhead. So instead we'll move up and go through the bulkhead at deck level and then down again on the other side. And of course this will be a bit more complicated than to just run everything straight through, but I really like the concept of having a true watertight bulkhead between the engine room and the living quarters. You could of course just run everything straight through and then just plug that hole with like Sikaflex or something like that, but then it will be a mess if you want to run another cable through there in the future. So I'm thinking it's better to move up to deck level. It's quite unlikely that we will have water that high in the engine compartment, so they will overflow when we have the holes coming through the bulkhead at deck level. So that's the plan, and of course in some areas we need to have cables or hoses coming into the center line of the boat, and because the lengthwise stringers sits roughly 35 millimeters lower than the floors, there's space beneath the sole to bring cables and hoses in to the center line from those cable trays. But of course, there could be downsides to having the cables like this as well. And there could be things that I'm not thinking about. So if you have a different opinion, please leave a comment and explaining why you think this is not the best solution for this. It's always nice to have a different perspective on things. Okay, so all of the pieces for the shelf for the sheerline on the starboard side are now glued in place, except for the piece in the engine compartment, which I will do later. But I have to wait with the port side because I don't have enough clamps. And instead, I'm thinking I will continue with this bulkhead section here, with this corner, which is the only piece that we don't have in place yet, to try to get the correct radius here, make some curve cuts on some PET foam and glue that over some pipe. And then I'm thinking that I will glue that core in place before we have it laminated. So I will laminate it in place just because it's such a small section, so I think that will be easier and faster. So I think I have changed my mind on that radius piece. Instead of just using the foam, I'm thinking I'll try to make it straight from a leftover piece from one of the bulkheads, which is already glassed on both sides. So I cut a lot of curve cuts, and hopefully the glass on the other side will bend enough so I can get it around that radius, which is quite tight. It's 30 millimeter radius, so pretty tight. But maybe it's possible, and then I can glue that together in the curve cuts, glue it in place, and then just glass the other side where the curve cuts are. Yeah, unfortunately I don't have any dust extraction for this saw at the moment, so I'll just use a mask. But I have ordered a cyclone dust extractor that we'll have out here in the new carpentry. So I think that will be really nice, but we won't have that until next week.
Stay tuned for next week's episode to see how it turned out. Thank you so much for watching, and a big thanks to everyone who supports our production.